We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Cali Sportsman, WDC is now on your radio. Coming live from the Bay, yeah, that way. They talk sports all day, LA. Dropping knowledge, high school, college, trying to score, play by play. NFL, NBA, NHL, that's right, you name it. They gon' bring it to you live. Talking sports and entertainment from the famous and the, you name it. Cover all sports from the football field to the basketball court. Thanking y'all for y'all support. Now tell a friend to tune in every Monday at 5. Best believe they going live at the lounge. Yeah, that's where it all go down. Got the latest in sport news and the greatest interviews at the lounge. Yeah, that's where it all go down. Got the latest in sport news and the greatest interviews. We at the lounge. The Sport Lounge. Yeah, that's where it all go down. The Sport Lounge. The Sport Lounge. Yeah, that's where it all go down.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sports Lounge Live. I'm your host and moderator. I'm WDC, aka Farhan. I want to thank you for listening today. As always, we have a very spectacular, important show for you right here on LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk. Make sure you follow us, Twitter, Instagram, hashtag the Sports Lounge Live, everywhere you can find us out there. All the latest posts, upcoming shows, highlights from the sports fanatics. My man, Cali Sportsman, you never know who's coming up on the deck. So, again, make sure you catch us here on Mondays, 5 p.m. Pacific time on LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk. You guys ready over there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's
Bring
up,
it
fellas?
on. Bring it on.
What's up, fellas?
Welcome back.
Y'all been off for a week and stuff?
Yeah.
What?
Back is the question. I was on my back.
Oh, yeah. So-
So
Nice.
I went over. I mean, it's sports, right? So
Yes,
I went
sir.
over to the Toyota Center as a fundraiser for ice skating, right? I could ice skate. I could roller skate. I mean,
So he says.
I don't know if y'all seen.
His versatility.
Y'all know who was here roller skating just this past week, right?
Who?
Was,
Who?
Mayweather was here at World on Wheels.
I had no idea.
really?
That's why they call me the Cali Sportsman.
Yeah.
I always try to justify that every time. Yeah, so he bought himself for 2018 new Rolls Royce, and they had a celebrity. It was all on TMZ and yada yada yada. So,
Yeah.
well, anyway, back to my story.
Yeah, get to your story.
So
The classic.
I get clipped. So I'm out there, just hey, never fall
On the ice.
On ice,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
I'm under 100, so that hurts. So I'm sitting there and I'm about to take someone say, hey, can you take my picture? So I got their camera in my hand and
You broke it.
2 kids was coming up behind me like this.
No.
So I went airborne. I almost felt like I was Jordan. I was like so high in the air. And when I hit, I just laid there for I
Wow.
laid there till your ego kick in. When your ego kick in,
Get up.
and then you end up on your knees. You still ain't up yet. You just on your knees and you're like,
Get on
okay.
your knees. Get on your knees.
And mind you frozen, so you don't really know what hurt. You just know that you fell. Like my age and you fall, that's something big. Like,
Right.
okay.
And it's cold.
Right? So I finally get up and then I get clipped again.
Wow.
Bam!
Man, that's
So
just-
I sit down for a minute and I say, and everybody, how the parents, you okay? You all right? Hell no, I ain't all right.
You just see me fall.
On
So-
the ice.
So to redeem myself, I went out there and skated a couple of times and then sat myself down. But
There we
with
go.
that being said,
That's why you wasn't here last week.
that's why I wasn't here last week. You know what I'm saying?
Now
But,
I get it.
Makes sense.
So-
we made up for it, so don't worry about it.
It's all good.
Okay.
And I'm not an absentee. It had to be a reason. Something.
That was a good one. Get on your knees. Get on your knees.
But with that being said, it's my favorite Olympics is Winter Olympics, and I say that because Winter Olympics to me is the most complex Olympics. Anybody can run, anybody can jump, all that. But when you start talking like ice sports and snow, and it's just an amazing time of the year for me personally.
Yeah.
And so Winter Olympics, it is what it is. We could see Winter Olympics anytime, but Summer Olympics you see anytime, but Winter Olympics is definitely special.
Well, why do you think we, as the United States, never fare as well in the Winter Olympics as we do in the summer, even though we got all these resources and stuff?
Well, I mean, you just got to remember, when you start looking at Sweden and you start looking at certain areas, I mean, they just deal with a different atmosphere all year long to be able to do the thing. I mean, look at some of the snowboarders. I mean, these guys have to travel all over the country.
Right.
And mind you, Olympic players in the States are different than out of the States, because Olympic players in the States are not paid. They're all sponsorship. So they all got to go and reach out to their individual sponsors. And just so Cali Sportsman is a junior hostess of the Olympics since 1984.
Oh, wow.
Boom.
So
Nice.
There we go.
So I'm honored as, through my parents. My mother in 1972 in Munich, Germany, went to her first Olympic as international hostess so it's kind of cool, you get to go to the Olympic Village and you get to kind of hang out with, so I went in 84 and I went to Seoul, Korea. So, Olympics is great, but at the same token, it's no fairness in regards to because Olympics in other countries, they're pretty much a paid player.
Right.
So
You have the national
country,
team that
the
sponsors
country
them and
takes
everything.
care of them.
Yeah.
Where here it's,
You got
that,
Amateurs.
that 4-year stride
Right.
and running around, and you got to go get a lot of sponsorship. I mean, it's not hard because it is the Olympics, but it's nothing here in the States where they basically give it to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We
And
appreciate that, man.
for sure.
Thank you for sharing your why you was absent.
yeah,
Last
more than
week.
welcome.
And,
That was my cut through to the Olympics, but I got you.
What's up,
Nice.
man? Introduce yourself, Fredo from
Well,
the
it's
Fredo.
Fredo from the Fredo Show. But no, my name is Fredo Cervantes. Follow me on Fredo at Fredo Cervantes. And like I always tell you guys every Monday, I'm gonna tell you the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah, the truth.
Yes,
The
it
truth
hurts.
is true.
Sometimes it hurts,
Yeah.
but
Truth hurts,
you
right?
gotta hear it.
Yep.
You gotta
What's
hear
up, man?
Oh, you already know it's me. It's Oscar. Let's see, double O. My Instagram is omoreno_1989. And well, I'm here to talk about sports just like the rest of y'all.
Appreciate it.
My man, this is Alex at the end of the table, Big Al. To follow me, just go to americalive.com. That's where my
Nice.
stuff
Boom.
is.
That's where the
Yeah.
stuff
There
is
it
at.
is.
Right on.
Website.
So
nice.
we got a pretty good show for you today. We got I want to say maybe the title's Life After Sports. We have Abigail who's here. She's going to share her story. Played some college hoops, had a tough injury, and then went through that that part of life where what do you do next? Life after basketball. And so she wrote a book, and so she's going to come and share a little bit about how she altered her life in these in this world of sports to her civilian life now. So I say civilian life because I was military, so I was like, there's a different life for me.
True.
And then we got Athletes First, who's here going to share their stories about what they're up to from their past and the present, and how they're impacting the college students' life as well. So a lot of interesting guests here that's going to be sharing their stories and information. So stay tuned for that. What's the highlights you got, real quick? Who wants to start?
That's all on Fredo, unless you got Mr. Google here. Who,
Oh wait! Before I rudely pass up my man 50 grand. You live at Sports Lounge Live. He got us on mute.
What's the count?
There you go.
There he is.
What's up, man?
There
All the
he
way
is.
from Boston.
I got the different. I got it down now. The mute. I can talk. The disconnect sends me away.
Oh, all right, good.
Got
I'm
it
glad
down.
you got it
Got it
figured
down.
out. Everything's cool back there in
Yeah, I'm
Boston, man?
learning.
Everything's cool back there?
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your
It's
time, man.
cool. It's cool. It's too cold. I want some change of weather, so I might have to come visit you guys.
Man,
Yeah,
we
you
waiting.
gotta
We
go
waiting
ahead.
on
you
you.
gonna need a jacket coming here too.
Oh.
We
Packing up
appreciate
and move to Beverly.
we appreciate
Yo.
your time, man. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, you got it. I'll hang around.
All right, cool. What you got, Fredo, man?
Well, man, it's an interesting weekend. First weekend back to basketball, because we finally got some basketball back alive here. And,
Yeah.
we were talking about it early on before the show. I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to check out what happened with Sasa Pachulia, Cheap Shot Sasa, what
Oh,
Mr.
for
Big
sure.
Al was talking
Absolutely.
about.
Man.
And what another, it seems to be, I don't know, Big Al, what do you think? You're the
Man.
one that were,
It seems to be following a pattern a little bit with
Yeah.
this guy. I'm not saying he's out to injure the opposing team's best player, but there is a history with him and cheap shots. So, I mean, it's definitely something I think the NBA needs to look into. I don't know if you want to go overboard with fining or suspending or something, but there has to be some attention shifted towards that. And, the Warriors as a team knowing like the NBA is watching this and you can't get away with this. Because with the whole Kawhi Leonard thing, it's not sure if he did that on purpose, but you still need to be aware that something like that's going on, and the NBA needs to protect their primary players. If Westbrook or Kawhi's out, that's bad for the TV ratings. So this is an important topic.
Yeah, and we saw what happened last playoffs when Kawhi went down in that series. The series was over.
Series was over.
Right. It looked like it was going to be a tough series.
Yeah.
And
And it
were
must
out
have
in
lost
four
viewers too.
afterwards.
So
Yeah.
this does affect the NBA in a negative way. So
Because
I'm
I don't
sure
know
they
watch
definitely
San
need to address
Antonio
this.
if Kawhi's not playing. I mean, who do you want to see? Pau Gasol?
Yeah.
Even though,
Or
yeah, he's
OKC
still there.
without-
Hey,
Tuning in
but
to
I mean,
see
but you also
Patty
got to
Mills.
look at Popovich still wins 60% of his games
True.
without his star
That's
Very
players.
true.
They beat the Cavs.
You know what I'm saying?
with
I mean,
nobody.
that's historically. I mean, if it's Ginobili, if it's Parker,
Right.
even go back with Duncan. That guy has a science with those kids. I mean, for those players, so that they make it happen each and every time.
Is Kawhi going to play again this season? Do you think?
That's
Well,
another.
There was
weird
a
topic.
report just came out today, just about an hour ago or so. I heard it when I was driving down here that he is going to play. He will be back in March.
Oh wow.
So Mr. Woj from ESPN, he dropped that about an hour ago. So I guess Kawhi will be back sometime
yeah.
in March.
That's pretty good because Popovich was kind of almost alluding to that. If he comes back too late, we're not going to play him anymore.
Yeah.
But I never understood that. I mean, I know you need some time to mesh back in with the team, but
It's really
if
not
Kawhi
so
wants
much
to play,
messing with the team. When you're a player and you sell the seats, it's really your whole muscle memory, body chemistry.
Right.
You got team plays. You kind of know what's going to happen. It's really just having that muscle memory in the game. And when you guys get away from injury, a lot of times they lose that because they were talking
Right.
about players when you got like a low body injury, below the belt. Saying you still can actually do exercises to continue to keep
Oh,
your
yeah,
muscle
for sure.
memory. But a lot of guys don't do it. So when they come back, they're nothing's there.
I mean, if anybody can do it, I think Kawhi can.
You
I
guys
don't
sound
think
like
this will
y'all
let
real
them
big
be-
fans of Kawhi, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
why not?
I like his
Kawhi's-
silence.
Well, I mean,
he's not a
yeah,
talker and
he's-
everything.
he's a
He's,
quiet
I'm not
he's all
saying
about
why
his game.
not. I'm just, hey, it's almost West Coast.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's interesting to get,
Riverside.
but it's also interesting to get this from San Antonio because their whole team, their organization has never had this kind of attention from a player. It's
Like
always been
drama.
Yeah,
It's
you've
just a
always had Tim
drama-free
Duncan,
squad.
like you were saying, Ginobili, Tony Parker, players that always been in line with the organization. And well, I don't want to let the media really define what's going on there, but there's been a lot of stories about how he was cleared by doctors, and it was really up to Kawhi. And at the end of the day, any athlete has the last say of whether they're going to play or not, in my opinion. But it was like there was obviously something going on in the organization that.
Well, it's always something going on when it's an injury. I mean, that's even relative to most any sport. If it's you got an organization, got a star player, the star player's hurt. How much can he play? How much can he not play? It's all this politics just generated around it. And a lot of times players don't speak on their own behalf because they want to play.
Right.
So I think it's smart to just, stay out, get healthy, come back 100% versus, I mean, if you think about it, 60% of most guys who get hurt, they don't even come back like they were,
Right, yeah.
I mean, look at
With
George.
these serious injuries.
George, I don't want
Look
him
at
to
Vince
come-
Carter.
Yeah.
When Vince Carter got
I
injured,
mean,
he
you could
didn't
just
come
look
back
at
the-
pretty
he didn't
much
come back
any-
the same either.
Isaiah, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody just don't come back. Rose, he never even,
Oh,
never.
yeah.
No, he
never
never.
came back.
He's still on the bench.
Oh.
It's tough when it's an
Yeah.
injury because the injury is not relative to just the injury. The injury plays a big mental part of your performance, and then you got to understand there's big money involved.
He's in his
So,
contract year, right?
Yeah, so you got money, you got all this. I mean, it's almost like watching the ball kid. He's going out there just not making shots because there's just too much going on in his head. His daddy is tripping and
Right,
his
right.
brother's stealing, and everybody's just doing
family
something.
drama outside of.
And Magic is like, go boy, go, just shoot. So it's tough. It's tough. You never know the back ends of what those players are dealing with.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, mentioning about Lonzo, we transition to the Lakers. The Lakers have actually been
Better.
winning
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
2-0.
Guess who's a good point guard on the Lakers right now? I think Brandon Ingram has been holding the show down,
Yes,
bringing the
he
ball
I
has.
think
up the
somebody
court
put a
pretty much.
bug in Ingram's ear because he was like a silent assassin to some degree last year, where he will kind of hit that knockdown shot.
Right.
And now I just think that he looks around and like, man, let me just go ahead and be the man,
Yeah, absolutely.
His
He
shooting's
has
been a
great
lot
floor
better
vision
too.
And if you look at the players they traded, look at them guys. Them guys are really, Nance is doing this thing. Nance
Yeah.
Jr., he's doing this thing over at the Cavaliers. So It's amazing, it's all, basketball is one of them sports where it's all about chemistry. You
Right.
got to play with guys that know how to share the ball and make it all happen. So,
I
it's
like how they're
interesting.
playing defense. That's what the thing that I like
That was the most improving
Right.
thing over the All-Star break. Their defense.
Well,
they're
we had no
switching off
All Stars.
screens.
No one was in the All Stars.
Yeah, so they had
so
a
they
lot of
better
time.
been practicing, right?
But let me ask you this. I mean, because now you got all this controversy that's happening in the NCAAs,
Mm.
ASU, these big time programs. I think everybody's going to get smashed on eventually. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. This is my opinion again. Just the Cali sportsman speaking out, trying to get some banter here. But
Say it.
y'all know what's going on in the NCAA.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So, I mean, it's a lot of big programs out there paying a ton of money for kids to get recruited. And now the undertone of it is actually coming up. I mean, what's your opinions on this? I think a lot of big school programs going to be. I actually want to say this as a prediction. It's going to be a Division II or Division III school in the March Madness finals, based
On all these
They're gonna get
suspensions. All these
kicked
suspensions and- but I think they gotta change it from the ground up, the whole system with the money that they get, how that gets allocated. I mean, at some point you gotta pay these players something or give them some reward or something like
You
that.
got
Like
it.
you shouldn't need to go to lengths to where you have to.
Well, we
create
got
brothels
some
on
we got some
campuses and
Division I football players in the room, and they know how tough that is in regards to getting paid.
Yeah.
The stipend for food and all that. I mean,
no, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
I
I'm
mean,
not
this
talking
is
about
joke.
food
I mean,
here. I'm
What are
talking
you talking
about.
about?
no.
I'm
but-
talking about
What are you
actually
talking
like
about, Austin?
compensation for
okay,
work
but you
that you're
got to
putting
understand there is education first.
in. Okay.
So when you're talking NCAA, it's supposed to be about education first. But we all know millions
Is
of
that-
dollars go
hold
into
up.
these sports programs.
Is that how the athletes are treated, where their priority is education first, or do they have to first prioritize themselves as athletes and then their education comes second?
Student
that's
Yeah, no, I-
athlete.
I
It's,
Right.
it's
agree
called
with
student
that, though.
athlete,
Yeah.
but the thing is that especially with, and I would take it off the basketball and put it on the gridiron. These guys come out in the middle of summer, right, to a major university, right, with no money,
Right.
right, just a dorm room and some food, right, fellas, right. So NCAA has, I always said the best marketing tool for them is that there's an 18-year-old coming to every little city every year. So why go, instead of them not having monies to be able to go to the movie theater and then go to
Of course.
to the
yes.
mall or whatever and buy ice cream or that, why don't those companies basically just offer a stipend to the university? So that way they don't have that offset of not having dollars. Because if you look at basketball players, most basketball players don't stay at a university no more than a year to 2 years. And then they
Right.
transfer. Either they transfer or they go back home because they missed their grandmother's spaghetti.
Oh,
Right.
spaghetti.
No, of course. Home
I
cooking
like
always.
spaghetti.
Yes.
So,
I like
so,
spaghetti.
so the
Hungry?
reality is there's this politics that you can't pay the players because the emphasis is supposed to be on education. But players are getting paid. But that's against the rules.
What you got, man?
Question. So, is there actual like a legal law preventing them from paying it, or is it just more ethics that they just
It's
choose?
both. It's a law and it's ethics.
What's the-
NCAA is there's a NCAA
What's the law?
standard saying that you cannot be paid as a player. You can't recruit a player and say, "Hey, here's $100,000. Come play for my team." That's really it's an uneven playing field because you got programs that got more money than God, then you got programs that don't have that much money. So how are they going to compete with that? So it has to be even because it's really about education first.
You don't look like you agree with that, man.
Well, I just feel like it's just my overall belief. When you put in work, you should get a piece of the pie, and it shouldn't just be like the little crumbs at the end. It should actually be the main part. And I feel like if these athletes are bringing in the energy that fills up the stadiums or the arenas, they should be paid. And I'm not talking about food or room. I'm talking about actual salary along with their education.
Talking about
It's-
chips.
It's,
Yes,
just
yes,
messed up
they-
because you
Chips
can.
and dip.
but they
Give me
get
my chips.
they get to live fairly okay though. I at least say that. I mean, they got chefs. They on planes. They're flying around. They got
I'm sure it's a nice
teachers
lifestyle.
helping.
Gotta be
Yeah.
some-
But what I'm
They
saying
got,
is,
they
but
got to
still-
remember it's a university setting, so it's education first. I understand the bread
I know.
piece, but it's
but at the same
education.
time, NCAA is a nonprofit. So when at the end of the year, when they have all this money, they have to find ways to spend it. And when you sit at the table and when you really don't consider, maybe we should pay the athletes that are really making all this money, because look at how much coaches are making.
All right, I ask you another question.
Yes.
So now you got how many players on a NCAA football team? So you got over 50 players.
Right.
How do you pay them equally?
Well, you just pay them equally.
You can't do that.
You can't pay them equally.
Because you
gotta
got
pay
a
'em
quarterback
penny.
gonna get more. You got a running back gonna get something. You got a linebacker
You
gonna
got
get.
the receiver. You,
you
gotta
got a
catch me. You gotta pay me
receiver.
for my hands, man.
So-
You just create a student athlete compensation regardless of how much responsibility you hold on the team. Everyone's valued the same.
It's not gonna be the same value when they transition to a professional sport.
What is in professional sports?
Well, because when you professional sport, if you look at it, a lineman don't get the same pay as a linebacker.
right.
A linebacker don't get the same pay as a DB. They all get paid, and they get paid based on performance.
But I'm saying we don't have to go as far
I'm
as
looking
paying
at my
millions
guys over
here.
here. I just need some
No,
help. You know.
No, but I'm saying we don't have to go as far as paying these athletes millions, but I'm saying like a couple thousand of dollars does help these athletes when it comes to really supporting their family back home. Because at the end of the day, when they take these deals under the table, it's really a lot of times to help people back home.
We
I
gonna
just think
find
this-
out when athletes
Okay,
first
yeah,
come
yeah,
up on the
definitely.
deck because that's what they about. They're
For
about
sure.
athletes first, so I'm sure they got some input.
But this
on
whole,
conversation, so-
education first thing and everything, whatever different degree you're going to go get out of college, whether you're going to study business or you're going to try to be an architect or whatever, you can get an internship next to that and earn money during the time you're studying. So why shouldn't you be able to do that as an athlete for the school?
Whoa.
It's just.
Whoa.
It's really just.
All the way from
I
Switzerland.
mean, if we're getting,
Yeah.
no, well, 'cause we're looking at the
all
details here.
I think these all the ideas are great. You know, for a player to be able to be compensated in some kind of way, because many
Just not what it
when
is
you look
right
at
now.
what the university get, the president of the school gets, and the coaches get. I mean, they're all in the millions. You know,
Major money.
and
right
all you
there.
get is a nice uniform, a warm-up suit, couple of pair of shoes, a nice place to stay, and
Red
a
Lobster
hot
dinner
meal.
or something.
you know
I thought
Yeah.
bragging rights was worth something.
they are, especially if you go to North Carolina.
Tell that to the coaches.
Right, exactly.
Right? Nick Saban.
All right, so check it out. Sports Log, you got anything you want to share with us, man, before we take this break?
Yeah, no, everything's going pretty good. Just waiting for playoffs, man.
You waiting for playoffs? Boston's done, son.
Boston's done. son.
He woke up with that one.
Right.
I was like, what?
We're just happy to be active at this time of the year, at least playing for the postseason.
Right.
You guys will be
That's all we-
proven, though.
That's all we can do, you know. We try and make the best of every
All right.
run.
Cool, man. All right, we're going to take a quick break. This is the Sports Lounge Live. I'm your host and moderator. I'm WDC, a.k.a. Ferran. I want to thank you for listening so far. Oh, man. College hoops, college sports, man. To be paid or not to be paid? That is the question. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk. Shout us out.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network, original reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Stay tuned.
Want to enrich in your radio listening? Do it now with the new WDC radio show, LA Talk Live's new talk rock radio show, Saturdays 4 p.m. Pacific, filled with news, talk, sports, entertainment, and more. Tune in as we fill your weekend with rock and funk from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. WDC radio show. Listen as we kick off the new generation of radio with talk, rock, and funk. The all-new WDC radio show, Saturdays 4 p.m. Pacific on LA Talk Live.
Tantu, teaching you the language of beats. Let's go.
All right, welcome back to the Sports Downs Live. I'm your host and moderator on WDC. Again, make sure you catch us here on LA Talk Live, the Sports Downs Live. Make sure you go to the social media, the Sports Downs Live, hashtag the Sports Downs Live, hashtag SLL, where you find all the updates, upcoming shows, and maybe find out some interesting topics that we post throughout the weeks. My man Cali Sportsman's here. Fredo from the Fredo Show's here. Double O's is in the building. And as you know, we've been talking about our guest here, who I met in one of my landmark classes. And we were talking. She hit me up. She's out to create a lot of new things for herself and helping others. And so I asked her, what was your sports background? And she was like, I don't live on sport. I was like, wait a minute, you got something back there. She was like, oh, yeah, I did play, but college basketball.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Just
it?
college
Yeah, just college
basketball?
basketball. So here we are. Abigail, thank you for taking the time out to come out to the Sports Lounge Live with us and
Thanks for
share
having
your
me.
story. So do me a favor and introduce yourself to the listeners, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, Abigail Gazda. I am now an ontological life coach.
What? Wait,
That's a
how do you
mouthful.
spell
I know. I love
Ontological?
saying it. Ontological.
I
I want to clarify it because a lot of people don't know what that is, and it's the study of the nature of being. So, like, who you are, creating the life that you have. And so I like having those conversations with people and bringing awareness that who you are generates the results that you produce in life. And so I have a lot of deep-hearted conversations with people about what they want and creating it powerfully. So that's a lot of what I do. I'm also an author now, which is really amazing to say. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And, yeah, thank you.
So, who was Abigail growing up?
Great question. So the book is called Giving Up, the Memoir of a Quitter.
Okay.
And who I was growing up was a non-quitter, like the best damn non-quitter you ever met.
Yeah.
And so I tell a lot of stories about that belief that we have that quitters never win or winners never quit, that sort of thing. And who I was this overachieving perfectionist.
Yeah.
You guys were doing all the conversation before. Student athlete, like that was me.
Yeah.
And that was my identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you end up playing basketball. When did the basketball life kick in?
Oh my gosh, first grade. I've been this tall since fifth grade. I've been 5'9" since fifth grade. And so when I got to college, they, what position are you? I'm a center.
Not here.
Honey, no, you're not. You better get faster and smoother. So I had a lot of growing to do, but yeah.
So who influenced that basketball life?
Oh, my mama.
Mama?
She played college basketball, and she's just a
nice.
certified badass.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She drives a Harley and everything. But no, she raised us. I want to tell a story is first grade intramurals. She's like, we're little kids bopping around, right? And she's like, Abby, rebound, rebound. And I'm like after the game, I admitted to her, I'm like, I don't know what a rebound is.
She was the coach?
Yeah. Well, she was
hollering from the
She was a
stands.
parent.
Yeah, she was that,
Oh,
yeah.
I had a dad like that.
I mean, she grew up coaching. She graduated from college and became a high school coach and all of that. But I would being her daughter, I was after that time, so she was my coach.
Living through you. She was still living
Mhm.
that dream through
Heck
you,
yeah,
huh?
yeah.
So you make it to college. What was that transition from high school to college?
Great question. It was quite interesting because I was this little girl from this little town with really big dreams of playing basketball. So I wanted to play for Purdue, and the older I got, the more I realized that might not be D1 might not be my option. So I played D2, and I'm proud to say it, proud to have lived it. And it's still all NCAA, but we played for the GLVC, which was a bigger conference in the Midwest, and just loved it. But as I grew as an athlete, going from the big dog in high school to
Not a
I
center
ain't
in- not a
shit.
center in college.
Not a center in college. I really had to just make an adjustment, and that's when I learned to grow. And I walked onto the team and started to earn my right as a freshman, and it felt really good. And then a huge transition occurred when I tore my knee.
Don't say that part yet. So
Saved it. You saved it.
you said, playing D1 and D2. What was that on
difference?
Yeah, well, like, what did you see in yourself? Now, I'm not saying for yourself
Mhm.
that you didn't think you was gonna be like a D1 player. Was there something going on or what?
Yeah, well, height was a big one.
Yeah.
And then, just it's a different caliber. And I grew up in a small town, and so the competition was just different.
Yeah.
It was just different, and I got a big taste of that. And so I had to adjust my expectations,
Yeah.
which was fine because I'm just as proud.
Yeah.
But it was just a different experience.
Mentally, how did you adjust to that? Was there any kind of mental adjustment?
No, because like you guys were talking before about athletes getting paid and whatnot. For me, you said it, bragging rights. Like
Yeah.
getting to play college ball, period,
Yeah.
was a huge honor, and I loved it, and it was it's a highlight.
Okay.
So there wasn't any recalibrating for that.
And then the knee.
Mm.
What happened to the knee?
Yeah. You guys were just talking about this. I wanted to jump off that chair over there and join the conversation because it was a major. So, 2 days before our first game, my sophomore year, doing a stupid layup in the last 10 minutes of practice, and I just tore the heck out of my knee. And I was in denial big time. Like, I was
ACL,
like, no,
MCL?
ACL, and it just all the way out of there. And they come pick me up and take me to the training room, and I'm like, no guys, I'm fine, just let me like bounce back for a minute. I stand up and it's like my knee is just filled with jello. And I tell that because it was the moment it clicked, like nothing will be the same. It's not there. Here
You just
starts a
knew.
long journey, right?
Yeah.
I know about ACL tears, and I know it sits you down all season, and so it triggered this huge identity crisis for me.
Yeah.
Like, I spent a lot of time trying to push that feeling off, but what was occurring for me was realizing I'll not be the same. It's not the same.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to push it off and making a comeback. So I never quit. That's what a lot of the book is about. Is I never quit, even though my body was telling me this might be your time.
But what was that thing you said you were pushing off? What was that? What it was?
I was pushing away that fear that might be true.
Yeah.
Like my health is actually more important than my quote unquote basketball career.
Yeah.
And I couldn't accept that.
Yeah.
I
though
grew-
it was looked like that was going to happen.
Yeah, because what had ended up happening is I recovered my sophomore year, came back my junior year, summer, tore the meniscus, tore the ACL again. I've had 5 surgeries on that same knee, and because I just couldn't deal with the hard fact that it's time.
All right, I'm done. So thank you for answering my questions.
It's kind of
Up to the deck.
interesting. I know someone that's almost similar to you, and I mean, it's 2 things you go back to. Is that every kid that plays basketball feel that they a Division I player.
Amen. I agree.
I mean, that's just been in basketball for the last 17 years as an AAU certified coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's been in a lot of gyms and watching kids raise their hands saying, hey, they want to go D1, where their real capability is probably either a JUCO or D3, but that is something with the stigma about going D1. I don't know if it's what they're seeing on TV or whatever it is, but that was the first thing. Second thing is that my son, who was on this show, my oldest son, his first opportunity to go to college was Gonzaga and Wake Forest and Purdue. His senior year, he tore his ACL and meniscus. Going into his senior year season, so all his Division I opportunities just went completely out the window. Right there.
Right.
So I totally relate to your story. And the no quit, he was just on. What was that, last year?
Yeah.
And he's like
Chasing it.
He's still chasing it.
Yeah.
He's been to Payne College. He's been to, he's been everywhere. Division II. He went to Columbia University. Trying to play, and he's smart as all. He could probably write a book too.
You guys got any questions for her?
I had a question. So you were talking about positivity in those moments for athletes. What can you tell youth that are maybe going through that right now, staying positive? Because I know that could be very depressing, identity crisis, in that recovery and that healing. So what can you tell youth?
Thanks for asking that, because that relates to your son as well. Is like, I don't think we spend any time finding out who we are outside of athlete.
Right.
And this is a moment that forces you to do that. And so the positivity, like, it's okay. Athlete's not your only identity, and it might not be that thing for the rest of your life. So a lot of us will get out of college and be like, oh my God, I miss workouts being scheduled into my schedule for me.
Yeah.
Now I got to get to the gym. Now I got to be fit and healthy and all that thing. And it's not that hard, but like the fact that there's life after sports,
Right.
you know, and that it's all okay. It doesn't have to ruin you. It doesn't have to be the last of you. Like, you get to meet yourself for who you are. I'm now an author. Guys, I went to school to be a gym teacher.
Right.
Like, I taught after, so it was all athletics, that once I let that go, I found a brand new side of who I am, and I started to build myself up as like a woman now.
Yeah.
I relate to athlete kind of as girl, and that's okay, but there's life after sports in a positive way.
And I think historically we've seen that, like, you know, the Jabari Smiths and folks.
Oh,
that
yeah,
are
for
after.
sure.
Everyone has a story that's kind of has a
Yeah.
same stimulant
Yeah.
in regards to, you know, when you in the moment, you're all about being the athlete.
Yeah.
And then once something comes along and takes that away, then it's for you to kind of figure out what is that transition and how can I make it happen versus falling off.
Yeah. Fredo, you got any questions, man?
Yeah, I was just looking over at the book. I see that, you know, you talk about your mother as well, and she's, I'm pretty sure, one of your biggest supporters.
Yeah.
What was she telling you throughout your injuries? I know you say you had plenty of injuries. What was her message to you throughout that time?
Yeah, she just, again, that don't quit. And it all came from a great place to be motivational and supportive. And, you know, there's a chapter in there where my senior year, I was about to go back. The NCAA finally mandated that we could go home for 6 days around Christmas, because before that it was like Christmas Eve, Christmas, get your butt back in the gym.
Yeah.
And so my senior year, we had 6 days. And on day 6, we went to this Bears game in Chicago. And before, I was like miserable because all I could think about was I was about to go back and start struggling again, like making that climb. And my mom, I was literally having a like hyperventilating panic attack. She's like, why don't you just quit then? And I was like, I've never had permission to quit. I don't know what to do here. And so she's always been my cheerleader, and she's always looked out for what's
So
for
she
best
gave you
for me.
that validation.
And I was like, oh, freedom, you know? And so it's always been, I want my mom's acceptance. I think most athletes, kids, people, humans.
I think humans, we want our
Thank
mother's
you, right?
acceptance,
Yeah.
right?
And
Praise.
she's always given me that, but I had to actually open myself up to it.
to receive it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
Cool deal. Anything else?
No, it's just almost like my dad was a carpenter and you wanted to be a carpenter, right?
Yeah.
But what city, like where, like you said, you grew up in a small town in
Yeah.
Midwest?
Yeah. Whiting, Indiana. I'm
Wow.
super proud of Whiting, Indiana.
Like what, two people live there? You and your mom?
Where is it?
My dad,
Wait,
my sister.
so you wanted to go to Purdue instead of Indiana?
Yeah, it's so Whiting is right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
Like
Right.
20 minutes from
Are you near
Michigan
Champaign?
Ave.
Champagne, Charlemagne,
That's way down.
Champagne.
That's way down there.
That's further
Yep.
down.
And
Okay.
so actually St. Joe was the closest school, and then Purdue, and then further south. So I'm way in that tippy top corner of
Okay.
Northwest Indiana.
All right.
You got chapter 2 about my humanity.
Yeah.
What is? Explain what that is.
Great question. That's a tough one, but I would love to like share that message with everybody. Is we have a hard time dealing with our humanity. That we might. I realized when I tore my knee, like, oh my God, I'm not invincible, or I can get hurt, or I could be sad. I never experienced depression, and the year that I tore my knee was the closest I got to that. And so accepting my humanity, that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to get support through that, because we don't have to struggle alone. And if anybody walks away with a message today, you don't have to struggle alone.
Yeah.
Get help, get support, talk out loud, and like put yourself out there in a way that you can be cared for.
Yeah.
And you're ultimately caring for yourself by getting supported. And I was way too proud for a long time that I had to struggle isolated and alone, and I don't recommend that.
Yeah. And you and I, we speak the same language because of our
sure.
our landmark education courses, which is huge.
Yeah.
Like I can relate to you, like I said, being in the military for 24 years,
Mhm.
getting injured
Yeah.
in the military and causing my demise and being medical retired and my depression and,
Mhm.
you know, was ready to just call it quits.
Yeah.
And just jump off the bridge and be done with it until someone shine a light in my life was like, hey, I know what you've been through and you can do something about that as an advocate.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is that? And then here we are, I get the whole new life.
Yeah.
And through that education, it really was, my mom praying for something to come in my life, and that education showed up, and it just shifted
No doubt.
who I get to be. So what do you want the listeners to really get from you being on the show today? What do you want them to know?
Man, when you said what do you want them to get, I want them to get love, like for real, just coming through the airwaves, is that you're not alone, like we were just talking about. And you're talking about landmark education, like speaking out loud gets you the things that you need. And so, yeah, I want them to get that just talk out loud, or put yourself in line with people who are having the same conversation, or because we can't serve you if you don't speak your truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody, anywhere.
And how can they get your book? Tell them.
Oh, yes, please. It's available on Amazon, and then it's also available on pinapublishing.com. To find out more about like what I do as far as that big word, that ontological coaching, please visit abigailgazda.com. That's my website. I have a lot of stuff on there, what's available. I love public speaking, I love coaching, and I love sharing this book. So that's what I'm up to.
All right, cool. So we're going to reshuffle the deck real quick because we
bet.
got Athletes First coming up. And I want you to stay, so we're going to move people around.
Great.
And then we'll be right back again. This is, again, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on the
Thanks
show.
for having me.
Appreciate it. This is WDC, the Sports Lounge Live. I'm your host and moderator. We'll be right back, so don't go nowhere. This is going to be a hot transition real quick. So keep it right here. LA Talk Live. We're more than just talk. Shout us out. All right, welcome back to the Sports Lounge Live. I'm your host and moderator on WDC. Make sure you follow us Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the Sports Lounge Live, hashtag the Sports Lounge Live, hashtag SLL. And like I said, we'll keep you updated. Shouts out to my sports fanatics, man. I appreciate you guys for making this show a dream come true, because I wanted something for the fans, for people to come and talk about their favorite teams and highlights and things like that, what they care about. So with no further ado, we were talking about college hoops initially in the first segment of the show. And so I'd like to bring our guests here, Jamal and AJ. How you guys doing?
How you doing, man? We're good.
Cool. Hey, man, thank both of you for coming back.
Always for you.
Sharing about
Happy to be
what
back.
you guys are up to. So AJ, introduce yourself, man, real quick, and we'll get this deck started.
What do you guys want to know, man? I'm AJ Jefferson.
How tall are you?
6'1".
Oh, he's short.
Yeah, right. Compared to you, man.
What's your background, man? Athletic wise.
I grew up in Bakersfield, California.
Bakersfield.
Right.
People grow up in Bakersfield.
That's
I thought just cotton grew up in Bakersfield. Apples and oranges grow up in Bakersfield.
Yeah, man.
It is a city.
We grown some athletes out there too.
For real, right?
I grew up there, Yeah. Played football. Throughout my high school career, I was a triathlete, man. I played basketball, football. I ran track, and then I went to Fresno, played football there.
The No.
Yeah, went to the No up the street again. Went to the No, played football there. Got an opportunity to go to the NFL. Spent some time there. A couple years with Arizona. A couple years with Minnesota with the Vikings. 1 year with Seattle.
That's right.
Then I made the transition to the CFL. I played 2 years in Toronto. 1 year in Ottawa, and now I just signed a contract with the BC Lions, so I'll be in Vancouver this
Vancouver?
this summer.
What position?
I play corner,
Corner DB.
DB's in the building.
yes sir.
Hey man, so before
Locking them down.
I
locking
give
them
it to
down.
Jamal, man, what's your point of view on this college athlete, student athlete, paid, not paid?
Man, I mean, like,
Are you able to make any comments on it first of all?
Okay, hold on. First of all, what years were you in college?
From 06 to 2010.
Okay, so let's put that in perspective.
All right, so
okay,
2006.
so
Cali Sportsman.
I mean, I was in college in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, we don't want that story.
So, but it makes a lot of sense though, because it's those players went through transition,
Right.
as programs.
Of course.
So the programs that was around probably in the early 90s is probably not as fruition as they are now, because equipment has changed.
Oh yeah.
Coaching has changed.
So let's let him answer the question. What's
the question?
Yeah. So paid or not paid as a college athlete? Or bragging rights worth everything.
And the subject is a little bit touchy for me, because you can't, like you were saying earlier, you can't pay a like one player more than the other.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
At that level.
At that level. But I do think that as an athlete and going through it, you live scholarship check to scholarship check, and it's a struggle, being a college athlete. But I do think that the colleges, take advantage of an athlete, and they make a tremendous amount of money on the shoulders of the athletes, and they should be compensated in some kind of way. I don't know what that is yet. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I do think that it needs to be done.
Okay. And Jamal, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm always doing good. I'm always doing good.
Thanks for coming back. So
Always.
what is your sports background?
So, like AJ, man, I grew up playing multiple sports. Grew up here in the Valley, and football, basketball, track, baseball, and but at 9 years old, I started playing football, and that was it. So, played Pop Warner, played high school, went on to play college with AJ at Fresno, and then like Abigail, I went through a pretty rough time with a couple different injuries. So I understand what that's like wholeheartedly, and so I understand the frustration, the depression, all that, and my career came to a screeching halt really fast. And I don't regret it because of going through that experience, and you see a side of college sports that you otherwise don't really experience, right? And then having that perspective is kind of what developed.
How you just a man into nobody, all in the magic way.
In like the flick of a light switch,
Right.
Yeah, just like that. And but I don't regret it, because obviously what I went through and what AJ went through obviously has brought us to creating athletes first, and it wouldn't have happened unless we had our experiences, for sure.
That's right.
So your take on the question about paid or not paid?
So here's the thing, okay?
Here we go.
Here's the thing. I think people underestimate how complex of an issue it is, right? And I think ultimately something has to be done, but the problem why it takes so long to have something done is because there's no perfect solution, right?
Right.
Like AJ said, you start paying the quarterback more than you pay the kicker, that's a problem. Because of Title IX, you have to have equal amount of male and female athletes. You can't start paying the football guys and then
More.
not pay the women's lacrosse team.
Right.
That's a problem. If you start giving college athletes thousands of dollars, you're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids, okay? That's a problem, right? So there's just a lot of complexities to it that I don't think people really take into consideration. Something has to happen, because I do think they need to get paid in some way, shape, or form. But I think there needs to be some kind of happy medium on how to go about doing that.
And that's why I said take the money out and just create stipends. Meaning, like if it's
I
movie
agree.
theaters, if it's things that kids will want to do while they're in college that they don't have money for, you know, if it's giving them a cell phone and having Sprint has a buy-in to the university, they need a car, and you know, Ford is buy into the university.
Question: what if I want to help my mom pay rent back home?
Well, let's call it what it is too, right? So like, I think there's a lot of different options. Some of the things that we've talked about is creating some kind of fund where athletes receive that money once they're done. But let's not make it seem like them getting paid is going to prevent colleges from paying them more in order to get them to go there.
You know,
Right?
and not only that,
So-
if a kid is getting paid, then not only when you look at, as we know, JUCOs go into
Yeah,
their
for sure.
second year, so you got this transition of players that's coming in and out of the university. So how you really, like you said, it's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. They need to figure out a way to go about doing it. And from what I understand, they're trying to structure something around the Power 5 conferences, right? Which is going to, and not only that, but now you're talking about separating men's basketball and men's football from the other sports, which that's going to create a big rift. So again, something has to be done, but it's just not the easiest.
And then if certain divisions don't have as much dollar power, then
Exactly.
that's going to be a whole nother issue.
Most schools, like smaller schools, don't pull in the same revenue as the bigger
Exactly.
schools, so it's
Right.
going to be harder for them to pay the players. It's like, you know, it's easier for the Alabamas and such to pay the players.
Right. So Jamal, you said that you could definitely relate to Abigail's experience in college sports.
For sure.
What was that transition like for you during your or after your injuries?
You know,
to what you're doing now.
The biggest thing, so my dad played pro basketball and then coached pro basketball for a long time. So for me, it was like just ingrained. Like sports was like, that's what I was gonna do. So I'll speak for myself, and I know a lot of college athletes go through the same thing, but I was going to college to play football. Let's make no doubt about it. Okay? That's why I was there.
Yeah.
I was not there to go to school. Okay. Once I got hurt and I was told I should never play again, like Abigail, I was in denial, right? And I was like, nah, I never quit, and I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep pushing. And I had to get more serious about school, and so I had to, I changed my major and did a couple other things.
Got into the EOP program?
No. Unfortunately, I changed the business instead. Right? And but I would tell you, I think the biggest part that it's hard for people to understand is that when you grow up playing a sport, I identified myself as Jamal, the football player.
Yeah.
I was not Jamal, just the person. So
Yeah.
what happens is once you lose that, you genuinely lose yourself. And you have to now figure out what the hell you're going to do with your life, what value you offer to the world, and who you are. And that's a hard thing to go
And
through.
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times you're not even Jamal, the football player. You just a football player. Like if you're just walking around campus,
Absolutely.
you're just a football player.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's not even a name.
AJ,
Absolutely.
have you separated your identity in this great place that you are right now? Are you AJ, the guy, and then you put on the uniform, and then you're AJ, the athlete, or you
Absolutely,
still
man.
you
No,
still got identity crisis?
No, I separate those two things, and I've always had the opportunity to do that because I've had a relationship with Jamal, and just having those kind of people in my life that have been through those things give me a different perspective, So I know I'm an athlete when I'm on the field, but like during the off season right now, I'm AJ and I represent athletes first. I'm somebody completely different. A lot of people don't get to touch on that part of me. They only know that I'm an athlete, or some people only know that I'm part of athletes first or whatever. But those two things coincide. I'm still one person.
So let's get right into this last segment of what is athletes first.
The simplest way I always tell people to think about is basically Yelp, but for college sports.
Okay.
So basically, we're the first platform that allows college athletes, both current and former, to leave reviews and rate their schools and their experiences, and we allow them to do that anonymously.
So is it a diversity program, meaning it's all sports that's college related, or is it basically the football, baseball, basketball?
So surprisingly enough, we've actually created a platform that provides profiles on every single school, every single sport, every single
Great.
division
That's
across the
perfect.
board.
And what inspired that? Because I kind of know, but the listeners may not know where
Yeah,
that
I
come
always
from.
keep it real. Right? So, what inspired that was a lot of us were told a lot of different things before we went to that college, and let's call it what it is. Schools and administration understand that concept, right? They know that once you get there, for you to then go to your second choice, your third choice is not really happening.
You gotta sit
right?
out a year, right?
Yeah, because the whole NCAA rules on, okay?
Right.
So with our experience and with a lot of other guys, we got there, and what we were told we were going to receive is not what we got. And I thought that, maybe that was just like a Fresno State issue. And then I had friends that were playing at Florida and Auburn and USC and UCLA, and starting to realize like, oh, this wasn't just our experience. This is like a similar experience across the board.
So when you say experience, and I was a student athlete also, so it's like the experience is you got a scholarship. Oh, okay, cool.
Mhm.
They don't tell you from year to year. And
Yeah.
your grades have to be a certain
Yeah.
level, and your disciplinary had to be a certain level. Not
Oh,
doing-
I got one
But
better
you
than
got-
that.
yeah,
No,
he's
I got
got-
one better than that.
yeah.
How about I remember my last summer that I was there. For those of you that know who the coach was there at the time, you go ahead and figure it out. I'm not going to tell you, but the coach that was there, we were having a conversation at like a picnic or something like that, and the coach was telling us, this was the head coach, okay, was telling us about how you remember the time within I think like 5 or 6 years ago where he was telling parents of recruits that they were spending money on building a stadium and building facilities, knowing that they didn't have the money to do it.
Oh,
They were
wow.
putting dumpsters and tractors in the parking lot
Right.
to make it look like.
to make it look
Yeah,
like
they
they
would
were,
put, like,
knowing that they didn't have the money to do
tractors
it.
and, you know,
And that's just one of many.
bulldozers.
I got a pocket full of these things. Okay?
Wow.
So
Wow.
So you're giving student athletes across the country to pretty much rate their experience at that college.
yeah, it's taboo, right? Like nobody, like colleges don't want college athletes speaking out, but the problem is that without there being any kind of transparency, young athletes are making decisions based off of a lack of knowledge.
Sound like Facebook on sports. You know what I'm saying? I mean, really, because Facebook started off with colleges, right? And then that's how
Yeah.
you couldn't become a Facebook member, was you had to be in a college.
Very true.
And this is a great idea because I think you need that voice. There really isn't a voice. It's a lot of silence in athletics, and we all get injured. I always say, injury comes with sport. So I think you guys are doing something good to be able to be a bigger voice.
In your college life, did you expect something out of where you were supposed to go and?
Yeah, I mean, just for me, the experience was the most memorable was going through 3 coaches, and
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell the infrastructure isn't set up,
Yep.
and so there is that would be great. And what we were saying earlier is, if we all live in silence, then nobody knows we're all struggling. So
Yeah,
if you speak
absolutely.
up about your truths, then okay, we're all making a little bit more informed decisions, and that holds people accountable too.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
problem is that there's no change because the people that have the ability to change the environment are not incentivized to do so, right?
Yeah.
So in order for there to be any kind of change, there has to come from power in numbers, right? So for
Right.
college athletes to come together and start speaking about their experiences, and for young athletes to start making different decisions based off of new information, that'll make those schools start getting their act together.
I mean, it's almost in line with the fact that, football players, you guys come out way before school start.
Yeah.
Guys are dying on the football field.
Absolutely.
They don't have no money. They away from home.
Mhm.
I mean, it started there. Then it went into the equipment,
Mhm.
of course. And then kids are getting hurt, injured.
Yep.
So now you guys are creating another voice.
Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Speaking of which, I'm over here messing with these microphones. Speaking of which, he mentioned about dying. So I'm a sickle cell trait advocate.
Mhm.
You guys are athletes. What was your experience around sickle cell trait during your college back then? And we talking about 2000 and
Tests, right?
I commend you, man, for shedding light on such an important issue. I didn't have a big experience with it, and from what I remember, I'm trying to think back. I think the athletic trainer at the time was trying to get feedback from us of guys that knew that they had the trait.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it was kind of something that was just like
Kinda
not really
hush-hush.
Yeah,
talked
it was
about.
it was
Yeah.
one of those things where it was all new to us. So I didn't know much about it, but they did. I mean, we had a couple athletes that had the trait. I think I can't remember if it was one or two, but a couple of the guys ended up having it. But it was something unbeknownst to us. We didn't know what was really.
yeah,
out
back
there.
early on in the 2000s, it was
Yeah.
happening, but it wasn't a lot of conversation
Right.
around it. But
Up
since
until
then-
talking to you about it, I didn't even know that it was like such a
Right.
such a
I
pressing
think
issue.
prior to 2000, they wasn't even testing
yeah,
for it. So,
yeah.
um,
You knew any?
No, I had
knowledge?
one teammate in college who shared that she struggled, and that was all I ever knew about it. And it was kind of like in the wind, just
Yeah.
oh, by the way. And then you came up to the front and center stage talking about it. I was like, oh wow, this is more than I've ever heard.
Yeah,
because normally people identify with sickle cell as kind of like a lupus form.
yeah.
So I think the sickle cell piece never really came to fruition like it is now. And you,
Well,
do-
yeah, because when you say sickle cell, most people think about the disease,
Right.
But
Right.
to get the disease, you have to have the trait,
trait.
which is the
Yep.
carriers,
Right.
and that conversation is what's been left out, which is what I've been able to bring that back and kind of separate those two conversations. Because again, you say sickle cell, they think disease, but they're starting to discover that people with sickle cell trait, especially in athletes, are having health complications and collapsing and dying playing
Yeah.
football, running track,
Right.
exercising. So again, thank you for your. So what at the end of the day, before you got a question, Oscar? All right, hold on a second. So Oscar's got a question.
Go ahead.
So athletes first. Obviously, I know there's a lot of things athletes need to voice out, but out of all those, what do you think needs to be voiced out the most? Like you talked about injuries, recruitment, just your experience. But what do you feel is like what basically any athlete's going through right now that they could voice out?
You know, that's a great question. I get that question all the time, and I think so much of it is so personal on each athlete. Everybody has their own story and their own situation. So a big part of why we started this is to create that platform for athletes to be able to speak on what's important to them, right? Because one athlete's experience of dealing with coaching changes, I went through 4 offensive coordinators, right? Is completely different from the other athlete who maybe has an issue with a particular coach or the training staff, right? So I think we need to get as many college athletes involved, because the more experiences we get from different athletes across the spectrum, the more information we can provide to other athletes. Absolutely.
So can you give out your website so people can know how to participate?
Absolutely, yeah. It's athletesfirst.com, and then our Instagram page is athletesfirst, 1ST.
1ST.
One ST.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. AJ, anything else you want to say about Athletes First, man?
Nah, man, you guys can you go follow the Instagram, Athletes First,
We're doing some fun
Twitter,
stuff.
all that, it's all the same.
Are you guys traveling the country with this, or?
Not
Can't
yet.
wait.
Not
Can't
yet.
wait, man. I know we're just getting started.
We need somebody to carry the bags. We need somebody to carry your bag. Just let me know. I'm a good bag carrier.
Ex-student athlete right there for you. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for coming out and participating on the show today. If you're listening out there, Sports Log, man, we appreciate you, man, for hanging out with us. And, just catch us again, social media, the Sports Downs Live, #SLL. Your book again, one more time.
Giving Up, the memoir of a quitter.
Amazon.
All
right, cool. You cool, man?
Like Tony the Tiger.
All right,
Great.
so we out of here. Make sure you tune in to the Sports Collective. We're going to go right now, head to the Canyon Division games and broadcast live. So Sports Collective Radio, Spreaker. We'll be doing play-by-play up there. So shout us out. What's the counter? Appreciate you.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
it. You're killing it. You're killing it.
Thank you for tuning into LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network, original reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.